Hey guys, Rick from Maple Syrup Tech. We're back today with another tutorial video of how to install either the Thermaltake T12 contact cooler, so their new cooler that fits with the AM4 system. It also applies for any Deepcool entry-level air cooler because they use the exact same bracket. And actually what we're going to do today is we're actually going to be using the Deepcool because right now my Contact 12 is actually on one of my systems and I didn't want to tear it apart, but I guarantee you guys, if you look, it's the exact same mounting system as on the Contact 12. And we're actually going to be using an AM3 motherboard because since this uses the brackets, it's the exact same mounting system on AM3 as AM4. Okay, and also the reason I'm using my AM3 motherboard is because I'm actually going to show you the way that the instructions tell you to install it, which I personally would never use because it puts a lot of force directly onto the CPU. You have to press down on the CPU really hard. Honestly, anyone who builds computers, you never want to like put a lot of force on the CPU or motherboard in general. And the installation method that they tell you in the basic instructions, which honestly are god awful, ask you to put a lot of force on the motherboard. And even when I'm going to show you the way that I do not do it, keep in mind that since my cooler, I've had it for a little while and I've also installed it about 10 to 12 times on different systems. My bracket system is actually a lot looser than it was in the beginning. So right now it takes a lot less force than it did when you buy a brand new cooler straight out of the box. And honestly, the first times I've installed this on in a system, I had to press down so hard that I even heard the motherboard creak. And for anyone that's been building computers, hearing a motherboard creak because you've pressed down on it has got to be one of the scariest things you can come across. So I'm going to show you a trick that I built with time because I've actually used a lot of Deepcool entry-level coolers before, which is why when I saw the Thermaltake cooler, I said, oh my god, this seems to be a semi-popular cooler and a lot of people are going to wind up wondering how you're supposed to install the thing and if you're really supposed to press this hard down on the motherboard. So I decided to make a quick tutorial video with a trick that I've developed over the years, which makes it really easy to install with almost zero force on the motherboard. And it's not that complicated. It's just you got to think about it to use the trick. So in a couple of seconds, you're going to have a close-up on the motherboard, and we're going to go look at how the instructions tell you to install it. And then I'm going to show you a trick to do it with zero force, and actually is going to even help you to center the CPU cooler better than you would. And by the way, I want to thank Paul's Hardware and Bitwit because I got this idea from their last video, the last build they did for the computer that they offered one of their friends, where I saw them actually have a lot of trouble installing the Contact 12 cooler from Thermaltake. And basically, I love those guys and they do an excellent job. But anyone who comes across this cooler for the first time, you're going to do the same thing they did. You're going to be like, oh my god, am I supposed to be pressing down this hard on the motherboard? So I'm going to leave a link down below to those videos because you can see that even guys who built probably dozens or even if not hundreds of computers, they come across this system of installing a cooler and they're like, oh my god, can this really be right? So I want to shout out to them and thank you for giving me the idea for this installation video. And by the way, just because I'm sure I'm going to hear it in the comments, I'm not putting thermal paste on the CPU because since this is not a real installation, I'm not going to waste a bunch of thermal paste just to put the cooler on, take it off, put it back on, show you guys how to install it. Does not damage the CPU in any way, and basically I'm going to be taking it off after. So there is no thermal paste, and yes, it's supposed to be that way. Anyone who wants to install it for real permanently, you just put a tiny drop of paste on the CPU, sort of like a pea. If you've ever eaten like a small pea, a green pea, you put about that in the middle, and by pressing down on the cooler, it'll spread out automatically. So without further ado, let's go to the close-ups. Hey guys, okay, we're back and we're close up now. So it's just, centered on, not hooked up. So we're going to look at, like I said, first, how Thermaltake or Deepcool tell you to install these coolers. And honestly, they're using the same system to the point where actually the instruction manual is identical for both. It just, one says Deepcool with the model number, the other one says Thermaltake with the model number. So basically, what they want you to do is hook on one side, and honestly, I know some people think you have to hook up the smaller side, but it's whichever is easier. We'll do it the way they say on there. Then you have to place the cooler to make sure that it is centered on your CPU, because by the way, you can install it off-centered. It doesn't automatically center at the bracket. So you see, you make sure that the cooler is centered on the CPU. Then you take the bracket on the other side and you press down. Do you see how the bracket is bending here? Like, I'm pressing down really hard to make the bracket bend and latch on to the clip on the other side. Not harder than that, but at the same time, I'm telling you, I was putting a lot of force to the point where you have to make the metal bend on the bracket. And like I said, my bracket is a lot looser than some other brackets when they're brand new. So honestly, for someone building a motherboard, it becomes scary. Now, what we're going to do is we're just going to remove it. For removing it, exact same system. Like I said, I'm using an old motherboard with a older CPU, which is why I'm not scared about putting that much pressure on it. Worst comes to worst, I break this and I lose a couple of bucks. And there we go, it's off. Okay, so that's the system that Thermaltake or Deepcool would want you to use, but you have to put on a buttload of force, like really a lot. So now let's look at what I recommend you guys to do. What I recommend is, number one, it's really easy. Actually, all you have to do is loosen the screws on your motherboard. Okay? So you loosen them to the maximum you can while still gripping the back plate. Because you don't want it to be completely off, you just want it to be loosened so that it's still holding the bracket in place, but it is not. Okay, so there we go. See, this is loose. We do the same thing on the other side. Okay, so loosen that up there. You can actually probably loosen this side a tiny bit more. Like I said, the looser the better, the easier it's going to be for you guys. And for this, you're better off removing the fan. So, because we're going to be tightening the screws after, you're better off removing the fan from the cooler and reinstalling it after. So basically, by loosening it, all you have to do is hook up one side. So it's the same method, but rather than having to do it with maximum force, you do it with almost no force at all. You just lift up the bracket on this side and clip it in. There you go. No force at all, no bend, and it's loose. And what's awesome too is that since you have both sides clipped in, you can actually center your cooler afterwards, which means that you don't have to sort of fight with your cooler to center it. Then all you do, hold the cooler down in the center and screw in the motherboard screws. Obviously, as any time you screw in, you do it not tightest and you do it in a cross pattern. Don't need to do it too tight the first time. It's just to make sure that the cooler doesn't move anymore. And there we're just going to give a half turn to tighten the screws down. Make sure we've got them properly gripped. So this one was a little bit loose. There we go. Two, three. And for removing it, by the way, guys, same thing. And this actually was the most important part I wanted to come across. Removing this cooler, if you don't unscrew it from the motherboards, you really have a risk of your cooler ripping your CPU out of the socket. Because what I've actually seen happen to one of my friends, and I had to come over and try to straighten some pins on his CPU, and that's god awful. It's that basically, if it's installed like this and all you do is press down and actually remove the side, and there is actual thermal paste on the CPU, and the thermal paste is old or very, very thick, what's going to happen is that as soon as you pop this off, there's so much pressure on there that the CPU cooler like pops to the side, pops off quickly to the side. I'm used to it, so I hold it down when I'm doing it, but if you forget to hold it down, it pops off to the side, and honestly, if the thermal paste is too thick, it'll rip the CPU right out. Okay, so we're back. So I hope you guys liked the demo of the installation of, like I said, the system for the Contact 12 or Deepcool entry-level coolers. I really like doing these demos because, you know, sometimes a lot of people building their first computer can be overwhelmed sometimes, just because honestly the instructions that manufacturers provide are generally god-awful. And honestly, that's something I really wish the industry would work on, because it would get a lot of more people into it. But at the same time, people like me who like making videos would have less material to work with. So at the same time, I guess I shouldn't wish for that. But nonetheless, I hope you guys liked the video, like I said. By the way, in the comments down below, if anyone knows any other coolers that use this same system, please leave it in the comments down below, because I'm really interested. I'm trying to make a list of the different mounting systems and which coolers use which. When you're ordering them online, it really helps to keep track of, you know, sometimes depending on if you're looking for one type of mounting system, you know, sometimes you want to turn some ways. Some systems can only allow you to put the fan in certain directions and whatnot. So if anyone else knows other coolers that use the same mounting system, please let me know. And if you like the video, please drop me a like. It really helps a lot for the visibility on the videos. And you know, if anyone wants to see any tutorials on anything else, and honestly, go wild. If it's something I have a lot of material and I have a lot of parts that like are stored, so I can do a lot of tutorials on maybe things that you guys are looking at. Just let me know in the comments down below, because the more ideas I have, the more videos I can make for you guys. And you know, I hope you guys really like the channel. So if you really like it, instead of dropping me, well, still drop the like, but even subscribe, because that helps even more. So I hope you guys will come back for my next videos. I'm Rick from Maple Syrup Tech, and thank you for watching.